What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou with the Duran, and I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. And today we're going to be talking about Angela Merkel. I didn't really go into the intro too much, Alexander, because it's Angela Merkel. Today was her day in news. First in the morning came the announcement that she was going to step down as CDU party head, and then she said that she will be not running in 2021 for chancellor or any political position for that matter, any political office. Take it away, Alexander. What are your thoughts? What's going through your mind? What's happening with Merkel, with the German elections, with the elections in Hesse? You know, what's on your mind with Angela Merkel? We've discussed this.
We've discussed this many times, but I mean, we've often discussed how long is she going to stay on. Well, at last and finally, Angela Merkel has herself put an end date on her time as chancellor. She said that she's going to leave the chancellorship in 2021, that is in 3 years' time, and that she will not seek office thereafter, and that she will not seek political office in Germany thereafter. So officially, and from Angela Merkel's own mouth, the Merkel era is now coming to an end in Germany. And we're now looking at a future in which Germany and Europe are going to have to be led by someone else. Now, let us be absolutely clear why this has happened. The reason this has happened is not because Angela Merkel wants to go. It's not because, as she was implying in her comments earlier today, because she'd already planned to say this in the summer. It's because there's been a succession of utterly disastrous elections, starting with the parliamentary elections in Germany in September last year, but most importantly, the disastrous elections in Bavaria 2 weeks ago, and worse still, in some ways, the terrible results in the state of Hesse, where her CDU party lost a quarter of its votes and her SPD coalition partner lost a third of its votes. And these two challengers, the Green Party on the left, taking votes from the SPD, Merkel's coalition partner on the left, and the AfD on the right, taking votes directly from Merkel's own CDU party, they are now rising. So, as I said, Merkel is under immense political pressure. She doesn't want to go. She's been resisting going. She's been resisting putting an end date. She's trying to cling on for another 3 years. But even she now realizes that the ground is shifting under her feet, and that the only way she can buy time and remain as chancellor for a little longer, for 3 more years, is by announcing that she's going to go. Now, to anticipate perhaps your further questions, I don't think she's going to last another 3 years. I think we're going to see her out much sooner than that. But over to you, Alex.
Okay, well, that was going to be one of my questions, but I want you to dig a little deeper into her 3-year tenure that she has left as chancellor, or what her wish is to stay another 3 years. She is a politician.
Yeah.
She's a very experienced and astute politician, and a very cunning politician. She's buying time, in your opinion, and as with all politicians, they could say one thing today and it could change tomorrow. So 3 years, a lot can change. Maybe the situations and the political environment changes, and maybe you see Merkel, saying, you know what, I said I wasn't going to run 2021, but now I'm in a better position and things are going a little better, et cetera, I want to stay. Do you foresee something like that happening as well, or possibly happening?
Well, first of all, the thing to say about Angela Merkel is that she likes being chancellor. I've been told this by people who have been in contact with her. She likes being chancellor a lot. She loves the power and exercise of the chancellor's role. So if that possibility of staying on arises in 3 years, she is not somebody to turn it down. And it's quite possible that at the back of her mind, she hopes or thinks or calculates that that might be what will happen. Having said that, my personal guess is that the reason she's trying to hold on for 3 years is twofold. Firstly, because she wants to mold the succession. She wants to make sure that whoever takes over from her as CDU's leader and as Chancellor of Germany is somebody who will continue her policies and her general direction. In other words, provide more of the same, and allowing Merkel, in a sense, to remain a kind of backseat driver. And secondly, I suspect that there are an awful lot of other people within the European Union, within Germany itself, and within the Western Alliance who have been telling her that they want her to stay, because for them, she is the linchpin around which the whole Euro-Atlantic project turns. With Merkel gone, it is going to look extremely uncertain whether things like sanctions on Russia can be sustained, whether the present EU policies of integration, which have been coming under so much challenge from countries like Hungary and Italy, whether they can continue. So they want Merkel to remain in place so that they can continue those policies for a further 3 years and at the same time restructure German politics to make sure that when she's gone, those policies will continue without her.
Yeah, but the people don't want these policies. I think that's abundantly clear, especially with the rise of the AfD. Is that not obvious to the CDU and to Merkel that it's not only they're not only repudiating Merkel, they're actively voting against her policies, mainly immigration?
It is obvious to me, just as it is obvious to you, Alex. But if you read the press commentary that's been pouring out of Germany and some other places over the last couple of days, and indeed since the Bavarian elections, it's quite extraordinary to what extent there is a denial about this. For example, when the Bavarian elections happened, which were a catastrophe for Merkel's coalition, I was reading bizarre pieces which were claiming that it actually strengthened Merkel in some ways, because supposedly the CSU and Seehofer, its leader, who had been critical of Merkel, had been weakened, and this had somehow strengthened Merkel. And you got the same kind of bizarre analysis after the elections in Hesse. People were saying, well, actually, she's dodged a bullet because the CDU, despite losing support left, right, and centre, it's gone down. As I said, it's lost a quarter of its votes, but somehow, because it's still the biggest party, that means that she can carry on. It doesn't mean any of these things. What we are seeing is support drain away. We're seeing support drain away from Merkel personally, and we're seeing support drain away from her policies. But there are lots of people who seem to find that very difficult to accept. And I think you're perfectly right in what you're saying. Clinging onto these policies, clinging onto the person of Merkel for a further 3 years is going to make the electoral catastrophe for the centrist parties in Germany, for the CDU and for the SPD, even greater, in fact, much greater, when it eventually comes. Trying to perpetuate this discredited status quo is actually going to make sure that that straight status quo collapses more completely and is going to destroy Germany's centre, which Merkel has come to represent and embody. And it is extraordinary that so few people seem able to see this.
Merkel's so toxic, but can the CDU, can they stop their decline? Can they backstop their decline by getting rid of this toxic leader? Is it possible, or has everyone just kind of associated Merkel so tightly to the CDU that even if they get rid of her, even if they disassociate with her a little bit, she's leaving in 3 years. Don't worry, guys. Everything's going to be okay. She's on her way out. Is that going to have any effect on CDU's, election numbers?
I think if the CDU got rid of Merkel now, they would probably see a rise in their support. I say that even if they replace Merkel with somebody very like Merkel. I don't know how sustainable that would be over the long term, but I think in the short term, if they were prepared to make that decision now, they would see their support bump up a little. Over the long term, I think that the reason Merkel has become so toxic is because of the set of policies she is following. If the CDU and the other centrist parties, the SPD first and foremost, continue with those policies, then they will continue to decline regardless of whether Merkel stays or goes. It is very strange that they are finding this so difficult to understand.
All right, so we've talked about Germany and the CDU and how things are being shaped domestically. Give us your sense, Alexander. How does Trump and the U.S. react to this news? How does Putin and Russia react to this news?
Okay, right. Trump and the U.S. We're talking about different people in the US. If you're talking about the people we call the deep state, if you're talking about the Democratic Party, if you're talking about the State Department, if you're talking about the Pentagon, if you're talking about the CIA, all those people, they will be horrified if they see Merkel go and if they see a fundamental shift in the position of Germany. Because for them, Merkel has been the indispensable ally who became clearly indispensable at the time of the Ukrainian crisis in 2014. If you're talking about Donald Trump, he and Angela Merkel detest each other. They don't see eye to eye at all. Donald Trump will be delighted if he sees Merkel go and if he sees parties like the AfD rise, because he feels a certain ideological kinship to those parties, whereas he feels nothing but hostility to Angela Merkel himself. If you look talking about the Russians, they will watch and wait. But from their point of view, since 2014, it has become very clear that Angela Merkel, who was somebody who they previously thought they could work with and had worked with, and who they thought they could rely upon, they have come to realize that she is not to be trusted from their point of view and is a adversary. So I think that though Putin and the Russians will be very quiet in what they say, they will be completely pleased to see Merkel go, and will hope to start again with any new German chancellor, whoever that is.
All right, let's close it out, Alexander. I'm going to say some countries, and I want you to give me what you think their take is on Merkel's announced departure. France,
Well, I think
Italy. Let me do like a small list, and then just I want you to just go for it. France, Italy, Austria, Hungary, Poland. What's your take? How are these countries going to react?
Right. France, the leader of France, President Emmanuel Macron, is going to be in some ways extremely pleased because from his point of view, he is now indisputably the leader of the European integrationists. He is the person who now represents the neoliberal, globalist, Euro-Atlanticist bloc within the EU, and he is no longer overshadowed by Angela Merkel. However, from his point of view, he needs someone like Merkel in Germany to make that project work. So I think he's going to be extremely concerned at the same time to see a German partner start to wobble. So in the short term, his position is stronger. In the longer term, it may turn out to be weaker. If we're talking about the anti-integrationist axis within the EU, and I'm going to specifically talk now about Italy, Hungary, and Poland, I think they will be very pleased because from their point of view, Angela Merkel has come to represent everything about the EU that they abhor, They see her as a powerful and experienced and cunning and skillful politician, and they will be calculating that whoever takes her place will lack her authority and strength, and that will play to their anti-integrationist position within the EU and will leave them stronger. So I think leaders like Salvini, like Orban, like Kaczynski, the leaders of Italy, Hungary and Poland, they will be delighted to see Angela Merkel go. Austria is in a slightly different case because it is so close to Germany. I think they too will be pleased to see Merkel go because the new Austrian government is well to the right of her and is taking an anti-integrationist position. But I think they will be looking very closely at Germany to see whether the sort of people who they are close to in Germany, basically the right wing of the CSU and the people like the AfD, whether they come out on top in the increasingly unstable political situation which we are seeing. And to come back to a point which I said before, I think it is extremely unlikely that Angela Merkel will be able to hold on for 3 years. I think support will continue to fall. I think we're going to see greater conflict within the CDU. I think the SPD, her coalition partner, is in deep crisis and will start to be wondering increasingly how it can hold things together with its support draining away. I think pressure on Merkel to go from this point on will only increase now that she has confirmed that she is going. So I don't think people are going to be prepared to wait for 3 years. And I think before very long, perhaps within a matter of weeks or months, people will be telling Merkel to go within Germany. And we will be seeing all these various countries that we've been talking about, making those calculations already and manoeuvring for position for when she's gone.
How about the UK, real quick, Alexander? The UK and the Brexit negotiations. How do you think Theresa May and the UK is seeing this announcement?
I think they will also be dismayed. Firstly, there are different agendas within the UK. I mean, one group of people within the UK are the same group of people we've been talking about in the US, the British equivalent of the deep state, the Foreign Office, the the Ministry of Defence, the various intelligence services in Britain. They've been promoting a very strong anti-Russian agenda. From their point of view, Merkel was pivotal to the success of that agenda. They will be extremely worried and nervous that a key ally in promoting that is now leaving the scene. But, of course, the British also have their particular interest, which is that they wanted the Germans to help them get out of the Brexit mess that they've got themselves into. When they say the Brexit mess, especially those who want to maintain some sort of connection to the EU through some kind of soft Brexit arrangement. Now, with Merkel gone, and with a much weaker leader in Germany, whoever replaces her, or with Merkel herself weakened further because she's given the date of when she's going, it's going to be almost impossible to see Germany delivering on that. So I would have thought that the prospects of a hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit in March have now grown greater.
Yeah, Merkel's almost become synonymous with the European Union. They both go so hand in hand. I mean, would you say that the European Union has now become much weaker or will become much weaker without Merkel, regardless of who they get in to replace her?
It's difficult to see anybody replacing her. I mean, people talked about Merkel as being the Queen of Europe. I mean, anything that basically Merkel wanted when she was at the height of her power, she could get. I mean, she even enforced on the rest of the EU this catastrophic refugee migrant policy back in 2015, which has been the source of all the trouble. So it's difficult to imagine any other EU leader having that kind of power again. That's even allowing for the fact that Germany will, for the time being, remain the most powerful country, because it's difficult to imagine any other German leader being allowed within Germany to exercise that kind of power. So the EU will be weakened, at least in its present form. It will not be able to pursue this integrationist, Euro-Atlanticist, globalist policy that we have seen Merkel pursue so relentlessly in the years that she has been Chancellor. So, yes, she has become conflated with the EU, and yes, her departure, whether it happens now or over a protracted period, is going to leave the EU weaker.
I'm going over your last comment. It's almost, she thrust the migrant issue on all of Europe, and in a way you could say that she created her own demise.
I think she did. I mean, the thing about Angela Merkel is that one of her, her particular skill as a leader was never to go against the flow. She always went with the flow, which, as I said, was always, during her time as leader, integrationist, Euro-Atlanticist, and the rest. But in 2015. She went too far. She crossed a line which was just too much for people in Germany and in the rest of Europe to accept. And at that point, the whole thing began to unravel. And with it, her power began to unravel. And from now on, that process is going to just accelerate, because when a leader puts a date on their own departure, the pressure is always going to be to bring on that departure more quickly.
Yeah, she's essentially turned herself into a lame duck.
She has, absolutely. You put it in a word. She's now a lame duck.
Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. And visit the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt, buy a t-shirt. It really, really helps us out. And in the description box down below, you'll find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate. It really helps us create videos like this with Alexander Mercouris, just for you. Alexander, Merkel is finally on her way out.
Isn't it? It's unbelievable. I won't quite believe it. She's gone until she's gone, like you said.
I won't believe it until I see it.
Having said that, I think we're going to see it pretty soon. Actually, I mean, I'd be astonished if we had to wait 3 years. As I said, when somebody says they're going, as I said, the pressure on them to go more quickly is just going to grow. I mean, there'll be people within the CDU maneuvering for position now. The SPD is going to be looking at its position. The Free Democratic Party is already saying that they're prepared to go into the coalition if Merkel leaves. So, we're going to see all sorts of things now starting to happen in Germany over the next
positioning and a power grab. I mean, I'm sure there's so many people who can just taste that seat of power at the Chancellor's
Exactly. And of course, ordinary people are going to be saying, well, we don't like Merkel. We want her to go. If she's saying she's going, why put it off for 3 years? I mean, that's very bizarre.
Oh, my God. We will be covering this story because I have a feeling, Alexander, that it's not over yet.
Oh, no, it's not. No. We're at the start. We're at the start of this, I'd say, on the contrary. It's going to be great fun. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Until next time, take care.
Take care. Bye.